Imagine the person closest to you dies tonight. There are no hospitals, no cemeteries, no funeral homes, no written traditions telling you what to do next. Only you, standing beside someone you loved. What would you do? Today, every culture has its own way of saying goodbye. We hold funerals, gather with family, and bury or cremate our loved ones. These rituals feel deeply human. But what about 100,000 years ago, long before cities, long before civilization, long before religion as we know it? Did ancient humans simply leave their dead behind, or did they mourn them, just as we do today? Surprisingly, archaeologists believe the answer may reveal one of the first moments that humans truly became human. For decades, many scientists assumed prehistoric people abandoned their dead. Stopping to bury someone seemed like a luxury they couldn't afford. It sounded logical, until archaeologists began uncovering extraordinary discoveries hidden inside ancient caves. Across Europe and the Middle East, researchers found human skeletons placed in ways that couldn't be explained by nature alone. Bodies had been carefully laid on their sides, arms rested close to the chest, legs were gently bent. Some graves contained stone tools, others contained animal bones, shells, or red ochre, a bright red pigment collected from the earth. These weren't random remains. Someone had taken time to prepare the body, someone had dug a grave, someone had stayed behind after death. One of the oldest examples comes from Skhul Cave in present-day Israel. Around 100,000 years ago, early Homo sapiens carefully buried members of their community inside the cave. One individual was placed in a shallow grave while holding the jawbone of a wild boar against their chest. It wasn't necessary for survival. It appeared intentional. Nearby, at Qafzeh Cave, archaeologists discovered more burials from roughly the same period. Several bodies had been covered with red ochre. This natural pigment had no practical value after death. Ancient humans collected it, carried it across the landscape, and placed it beside people they had lost. Why? No one knows for certain. Some scientists believe the color symbolized blood or life. Others think it represented remembrance or rebirth. Whatever its meaning, one thing is clear. The dead still mattered, even after they were gone. But perhaps the most surprising part wasn't the burial itself. It was the effort. Digging a grave using only stone tools could take hours. For hunter-gatherers, every hour spent digging meant less time finding food. It was a sacrifice, yet they chose to do it anyway. Why? What made caring for the dead worth risking the survival of the living? The answer may completely change the way you think about our ancestors. Because the strongest evidence that ancient humans didn't simply survive together, they cared for one another, was waiting inside a cave in northern Iraq. A discovery that would forever change what scientists believed about the human heart. The cave is called Shanidar Cave. Hidden in the Zagros Mountains of northern Iraq, it holds one of the most remarkable discoveries in human history. In the late 1950s, archaeologist Ralph Selecki uncovered the remains of several Neanderthals who lived between 45,000 and 65,000 years ago. One skeleton stood out immediately. Scientists named him Shanidar I. He had suffered injuries that should have ended his life. His left arm had been crushed and was likely amputated. He was blind in one eye. He had severe hearing loss. His right leg had been badly damaged, leaving him with a permanent limp. Yet he didn't die from those injuries. He lived for many years afterward. That changed everything. A person with these disabilities could not have survived alone in the Ice Age. Someone had to gather food for him. Someone had to protect him. Someone had to help him through daily life. For years. This wasn't survival driven by instinct. It was compassion. Long before civilization, humans, and possibly Neanderthals, were already caring for the weak instead of abandoning them. But Shanidar Cave revealed an even greater mystery. Another burial, known as Shanidar IV, contained an unusual amount of flower pollen surrounding the body. Ralph Selecki proposed a remarkable idea. Nearly 60,000 years ago, Neanderthals may have placed flowers beside one of their dead. The discovery became famous as the flower burial. If true, it would suggest that prehistoric humans were already performing rituals to honor the dead. A funeral, tens of thousands of years before recorded history. Not everyone agrees with that interpretation. Later researchers argued that burrowing rodents may have carried the pollen into the cave long after the burial. The debate continues today, but one fact remains undisputed. The body had been intentionally buried. It wasn't left where the person died. Someone carefully placed them in the ground. Someone stayed until the burial was complete. As archaeologists uncovered more prehistoric graves across Europe and the Middle East, a clear pattern began to emerge. Again and again, ancient humans chose to bury their dead. Different regions, different cultures, different time periods. Yet the same behavior appeared over thousands of years. Death wasn't simply the end of a life, it had become a moment worthy of remembrance. Then, archaeologists made another discovery, this time in Russia, a burial so extraordinary that it forced scientists to ask an entirely new question. Were ancient humans simply burying the dead, or did they already believe that something came after death? The discovery was made at a site called Sunghir, just outside modern-day Moscow. Dating back around 34,000 years, it contains one of the richest prehistoric burials ever found. Archaeologists uncovered the grave of an adult man, but he wasn't buried alone. His body was covered with more than 3,000 carefully carved ivory beads. Fox teeth decorated his clothing. Mammoth ivory spears rested beside him. Researchers estimate that carving just one ivory bead could take nearly an hour using only stone tools. That means thousands of hours of work were buried with a single person. Nearby, archaeologists discovered two children buried side by side. Their graves were even more astonishing. More than 10,000 ivory beads surrounded their bodies. Others suggest something even more profound. Perhaps ancient humans believed the dead were beginning another journey. We may never know exactly what they believed, but we know one thing: death had become meaningful. Another clue appears again and again across prehistoric burial sites: red ochre. This bright red pigment has been found in graves across Africa, Europe, Asia, and Australia. Ancient humans traveled long distances to collect it. Then they carefully covered bodies with it before burial. No written explanation survives, but the pattern is impossible to ignore. Whatever its meaning, it shows that prehistoric people weren't simply disposing of the dead, they were honoring them. Today, every culture has its own funeral traditions. Some bury their loved ones, some cremate them, others gather to celebrate a life well lived. The rituals may be different, but the purpose is often the same: to remember someone who mattered. The next time you stand at a funeral, remember that this tradition may be far older than civilization itself. More than 100,000 years ago, another human stood quietly beside a freshly dug grave. There were no churches, no monuments, no written prayers, only memories, a handful of red earth, and a final act of kindness. The first funeral wasn't just about saying goodbye. It may have been the moment humans proved they were capable of something no stone tool could ever measure: compassion. Because the day our ancestors chose to care for the dead, they showed that being human wasn't only about surviving, it was about remembering. And perhaps that is the oldest tradition our species has ever shared.